All right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Another ShareWise webinar. I'm excited. My name is Harry McCaskill. I'm one of the senior advisors here. We're based in Sydney today. We're very, very lucky to have Joe, the managing director at Elementos. ELT is their ticker code. He's got a few exciting things he wants to obviously go through, discuss. They had an announcement this morning, which I'll let him. He'll go over and he'll touch on that. But the key things, obviously, are progress in their tin project in Spain, progress in their Cleveland mine in Tassie, a few things regarding capital raisings. But Joe, lovely to have you on board. We appreciate your time. I know you're a busy man, so I'll let you take it away. But anyone who has any questions, drop them in the comments section or in the Q&A section throughout. Joe wants to answer anything you guys are curious to hear or know a little bit more about. And yeah, Joe, pleasure.
Yeah, thanks, Harry. Nice to meet you, and very pleased to be here for my first ShareWise webinar. Look forward to taking everyone through our story. Yeah, Harry, feel free to jump in and interrupt me. I do sometimes get on a roll with these things, as we all do. So
nothing wrong with that,
huh? Let's just do some IT. You confirm you've got my screen up there?
That's sweet. You sound fine. We're ready to get the ball rolling.
Beautiful. All right, guys. Yeah, so our name's Elementos Limited. We are obviously publicly listed on the ASX under the code ELT. We are predominantly a tin company, one of the few tin companies around the world. There's only 2 listed producers anywhere around the world, and there's only a handful of us explorers. Now, I'll take you guys through tin. I can't start telling you about my projects until I educate you all in the market on tin, which I'm very familiar in doing, but I'll also go through sort of reordered my usual presentation because obviously this morning we've put out a very exciting announcement from down in our Cleveland tin mine, the old Cleveland tin mine in Tassie, which has always been prospective for tungsten, and we've had a tungsten resource and a tungsten exploration target on that. We've just completed an 1,100-meter hole drilling from a completely different part of the deposit. And we've hit a 420-meter intercept of tungsten yet to be assayed. So we're just reporting the visual logging, the visual what we can see in the core right now, but it's very obvious to the eye of what we've hit. And very soon we'll come back to the market with updates on that. The company as a whole, though, this is probably the best slide to sort of take people through where we're at. Our flagship asset, and the one we spent the most time and most money and the most focus of the company, is our Oropesa tin project in Spain. It is the only, there are no operating tin mines in the European Union. We are the only development asset in the EU. And the whole world is obviously seeking to reduce the reliance on China and Asia focus and really protect that. So for us being a tin mine within the EU is critically important for us, and we're very well matured in developing that. The DFS we'll try to get out by the end of this year. We've just reached an agreement with the Andalusian authorities. Sorry, we're in the Andalucía, which is a sub-region of Spain. It's an autonomous region, so all our approvals go through the Andalusian regulators and government. Sorry for a second. So we've reached an agreement on them, what the layout of our mine looks like. We'll be putting in our permit applications again end of September or early October, and then completing the DFS to that. The DFS is highly mature to be completed. We have also signed an option to take a 50% stake in a tin smelter 220 kilometers up the road from our tin mine. Now, you may wonder why there's a tin smelter in Europe when there's not tin mines, but effectively they're pretty much processing secondary products, scrap, and some residues from other tin smelters around the world. So we're going to take a 50% stake in that. We'll be vertically integrated, so we'll be mine to metal. We'll produce tin ingots within the European Union, which again, currently all the smelting capacity for tin in the globe is pretty much sitting in Asia and in Malaysia, Thailand, or the south of China. So for us to be vertically integrated with the EU just removes another geopolitical risk. There's also a European tin premium, which means effectively we can smelt for free and selling to the tin market there in Europe. So very exciting. Obviously, the fourth point there is the one I've already touched on. We've just announced a very large tungsten intersection, which sits underneath our tin copper resource at our Cleveland tin deposit down in Tassie. So some major milestones for us, and some major milestones in the near future. Tin prices are doing very well. They've outperformed all the other base metals this year and continue to hold strong despite a lot of macro volatility. That's predominantly at the moment because there's massive issues on the supply side. So very few of the established tin producers are maintaining their production, and that is causing a lot of stress through the market. I'll fly through this one because I probably just covered most of these options, but really we're focused on two areas. We're focused on the south of Spain, which is the Andalucía region, which, as I said, will be a fully integrated tin producer, and then our Cleveland tin mine in Australia, which does have a very nice 7.5 million tonne tin resource with a copper credit as well. It did operate twice through last century for about 35 years, and we're looking to restart that. But we truly think the tungsten that sits just below the tin copper is going to play a major role too. Obviously, tungsten is while I say tin is one of the one of the critical minerals sort of going under the radar, tungsten is even more so. It's military applications. It's obviously the second hardest mineral in the world after diamonds, used in drill bits, mining equipment, and then obviously military applications. Right now, its demand is huge, and its supply side is also weak. And it's another commodity that's dominated by China. I think about 86% of tungsten production relies on China. So obviously it's on pretty much every other region's critical mineral list because of that dependence, especially when it comes to military applications.
Excellent. And just to jump in there really quickly, Joe, obviously, tungsten being very, very heavily reliant on China, with their economic slowdown at the moment, what is your outlook on not only tungsten, but also tin in the next, let's say 12 to 18 months? That's obviously going to be a big driver for your business. The outlook on tin and tungsten is going to impact the share price, and the share price is what everyone is really, really interested in. So what is your outlook?
Yeah, so I'm no commodity forecaster, but for my 2 cents is this slowdown that everyone talks about in China. A lot of people are focused on the construction sector. So us as Australians are very focused on bulks, right? The iron ore and the coal. My view is they'll get affected because so much of that demand goes to building infrastructure and the construction side. But when you move into some of these other commodities, their drivers aren't driven by the construction sector. So tin, for instance, is used in electronics. Its main use is an electrical solder. So effectively, COVID, big boom of electronics, and the tin price ran. But we've had a major pullback since then. And basically the price you see now is still based on pretty muted demand. Like a lot of people are delaying buying their new iPhone, they're hanging on their old one a few years, maybe they're making do with their laptop or iPad. But people want the latest electronics, and whether there's there'll be another wave. And obviously when the demand comes back, the tin price will probably do some crazy things again. But even still, right now, the supply side is so strained and struggling to meet the current demand that we think the tin price is going to remain very strong. And certainly to incentivize most new projects, which are clearly needed in the market, you need a tin price over $30,000. It's currently trading about $33,000 a tonne. The tungsten side, I can't speak with much authority. My knowledge isn't as deep. But again, if you look at the uses of tungsten and you look at where the world is moving to needing critical minerals, like mining's not going to slow down. The military, let's hope the military conflicts around the world do slow down, but on the current pace, it doesn't look like that, and it certainly doesn't look like people are going to stop, staffing up their militaries and whatnot. So I think tungsten's very strong, and I think that these are two of the commodities that have done the best in the last 12 to 24 months, and I think there's a reason for that. They sit outside that classic China narrative that we're being told.
Yeah, excellent. And obviously, you guys are focusing on both commodities. Which side of the business is going to be the main revenue generator moving forward? Is the Oropesa project more important to you at this point? And if so, is that what's going to be funding the Cleveland tin project? What's your thoughts there?
So we're very happy to have a portfolio of assets, and we want to move them both into development. As I said, the tungsten that we've got in Cleveland, it sits separately to our tin copper resource. That's early in the development stage. While it's an old tin operating tin mine, we're less confident exactly how that asset will be developed, but this hit of tungsten certainly gives it a big shot in the arm, right? Our main focus for the last 3 years, 4 years of the company since we acquired it has been Oropesa, and that's the one we're moving into DFS. Like, we've done scoping studies, we've done the equivalent of PFS studies. We're now moving to a DFS. That one we're getting ready. We want to finance that, get that into construction. Now, the Tassie asset, is very interesting to us, and we'll continue. But the next stage for us is either taking it through some formal studies, running it through some scoping studies, starting to attribute some value to the market, or continuing to do some further exploration to really see what the size of this thing is. So both of them, we're very keen. People have come to us historically and wanted to do deals. We don't want to get rid of them. But certainly, if you're looking at which one's going to be developed first and going to be cash flow generation for the company, certainly it's going to be in Spain.
Yeah, nice, excellent. Well, I'll stop jumping in. I'll let you continue with the preso, but it's
all right. No, it's all right. It'll allow me to fly through some of these other slides, I think, because we're hitting the main points. So effectively for us, Spain, we've done all the work. We've got all the technical data. We're really at the final stages of engineering a couple of the elements, as well as doing the reporting of the DFS, as well as that in parallel, getting our licenses and approvals, which we currently have forecast to receive the end of next year, for the end of 2025. Then we'll send the project into construction. So all the hard work's done, all the expensive stuff, the resource is sitting at a very mature level, all the met work's done, geotech, all those expensive, time-consuming phases to get a project through are all done. We're in the final stages of getting that project into construction and into operation. The Cleveland project, and evidenced by what I've done this morning, is a very exciting blue sky opportunity. It's yet to be fully defined how big that thing is, but looking at the inferred resource we currently have on it, plus the exploration target, which the current drill hole we've announced was into that, certainly is more confidence we have a very large tungsten asset down there as well. Clearly, we will need to push that through, obviously, the JORC code requirements and the studies, but certainly very exciting to us. We will do some follow-up met work or sorting and that sort of stuff, which works very well in tungsten and tin. I'll fly through here. Getting to tin, I think we've covered most of this. Its main driver is an electrical solder. So if you believe in the electrification story, if you're a copper bull or any of that, you're indirectly a tin bull. Copper and tin, there was a thing called the Bronze Age, 5,000 years ago. That's a blend of copper and tin. So these two things have always been related, always to do with, either alloying metals. Now they've both moved into this electrification story. So tin is highly levered to electrification story. Everything that becomes a battery, everything that becomes, an automated part of your house or your life requires an electrical circuit, and that requires tin. Tin is the solder that connects all the smart parts of an electrical circuit. So it used to be lead, but obviously lead's been removed. So now it's all really focused on 95% of solder is now tin. So very levered to that. In terms of where it sits, you'll see here, this is just our list of where tin, tungsten, and a couple of our byproducts sit on critical mineral lists. It's everywhere. They're obviously clearly critical, and the world is too reliant both on tin and tungsten on Asia and specifically China for the global supply. So there's some big geopolitical risks that need to be solved, and there's very few tin projects that are fully independent of China. Usually, China plays a role somewhere in their supply chain. Here's the tin price. Tin price has been very strong, as I said. Sitting well above the $30,000 mark at the moment, both in Shanghai and the London Metals Exchange, and certainly holding strong. It's been historically quite a volatile metal, but certainly through quite stressful macroeconomic conditions, still showing its strength due to that supply side. The main forecasters in the industry are the International Tin Association, of which we're a member. They're forecasting, a 60,000 ton deficit by 2030. And that's in a market that is only 360,000 ton size. So this is a significant deficit forecast. It's getting pretty soon. We're only talking about, 6 years away. And a lot of even some of the mines they've got modeled that will come on in the next 5 or 6 years, probably have some doubts alongside them. So it's a very stressed market. One of those commodities that just really didn't get any attention or investment for about 30 years. Therefore, there's very few of us developers out there right now. Where does tin currently come from? It comes from some countries which probably, at least public perspective, is there's some pretty low environmental standards, ESG standards. You've got Indonesia, China, Myanmar, Central Africa, South America as the main producers. You see Australia only produces 9,000 tons about 10,000 tons now of 365,000 tons, and Europe used to produce 410, currently producing none. So and you'll notice what's missing there. There's no countries in North America that produce any tin. So neither Canada, USA or Mexico produce any tin. So effectively, you've got 3 major economies there that have absolutely very little exposure to tin and need more. The chart on the right there just basically shows that we have the major suppliers dropping off and more supplies required. So very quickly, I'll jump into our Tassie asset, which usually I do these things in reverse, but because of this morning's announcement, I thought it was very prudent to, show the excitement we've got on the recent announcement. So this is the old Cleveland tin mine. It stopped operating in 1986. We've got it as an EL. It's got a 7.5 million ton resource there, with most of that sitting in the indicated category, which means, through studies it can be banked. 0.75% tin is a good grade. Pretty much in the underground, you want 0.75 to sort of 1% tin. The thing about this mine is the development costs will be substantially lower because it still has the established underground infrastructure there, declines, ventilation shafts, and the rest of it. They do need to be rehabbed since 1986, but it is still a very nice looking resource with some significant capex savings when we redevelop this due to the existing infrastructure. There is a tailings resource sitting there. It's actually a tailings reserve sitting there from the previous operations, which we've done some test work, and looks like that'd be more tin and copper can be recovered. But what's of interest to us, and why we're talking about it today, is there is a 4 million ton inferred tungsten resource sitting below the tin copper resource at about 320 meters below the underground entry. And below that, a very large exploration target. That 15 to 24 million ton exploration target, if that's combined at some point with the 4 million tons, this will be one of the biggest tungsten deposits in the world. So what we did is we've drilled a very large hole from the other side of the hill on the opposite direction to all the historic drilling to come in at a specific angle. And we've drilled into that exploration target, and we've got a 420 meter intercept of tungsten, which is huge. So effectively, this is a porphyry style mineralization. So it's got a host rock, which changes a little bit, but effectively you've got these quartz veins, regular quartz veins going through, and the quartz veins very clearly have visual wolframite, which is a type of tungsten, scheelite, which is another type of tungsten, as well as some other very interesting critical minerals, fluorite, fluorspar, and some chalcopyrite, which is copper. So obviously, we're waiting for the assays. We do have the confidence from visual identification and logging to be able to announce this, which we have. And I think what you can see there is we've got the underground infrastructure running down to the top of this tungsten resource. The pink color you see there is the 4 million tons of inferred resource, and then below that, the exploration target. So what we wanted to do, all the historic assays and the drill holes you can see in that picture are from drilling that was done in the 70s and 80s by the previous owner. But we didn't have access to that core. So what we've done now is got a huge section of core. which we now put through some metallurgical studies, including ore sorting, and we'll really see what grades we can produce out of that. That's just a nice snapshot of the some of the core. Very clear. I'm not saying everyone on the call, but at least clear to our trained geologists. We got big chunks of wolframite in there, big chunks of molybdenum. So for us, very exciting and very much looking forward to getting the assays back from the lab, which should come in the next couple of weeks. And we'll obviously report them in a couple of batches because there's a huge amount of them, about 200, nearly 300 samples in with the lab right now, covering 420 meters. So yeah, we're very excited to get those assays out to the market when they come in.
Excellent. And Joe, that's obviously it's big news for the business. Obviously, a 420-meter deep mine. With regards to that, what are the costs, the cost implications there when it comes to mining tungsten so deep? And is there going to be major need for capital raising, or is there cash behind the scenes that you don't necessarily need to do a capital raise?
Oh, I guess that's down the track. We're not, right now, just to be clear, we haven't costed this. In saying that, and I'll show on this slide, we do have development into the resource, which obviously minimises the cost, but we do need to build a process plant. We do need to establish all those things. So it will be funded, at least conceptually, in quite a traditional way. In saying that, depending on the grades of tungsten you get back, you might be able to get away with a crush or sort and a gravity plant. You might not need to put a significant back end onto the plant, which would reduce the capital, but that's down the track. What we want to do is get confidence on this resource, see what the grades are, then that'll help us define the further plan. But the first step in terms of costing it would be taking it through a scoping study. But as I said, it's what we do know, or what we can see from these results so far, is a big blob of tungsten, and certainly something that we're very interested to continue to pursue.
Excellent. And obviously, what a key thing investors look at and want to see moving forward is small progressions, right? Obviously, clearly this is happening behind the scenes with ELT. What's for yourself? What are the next 6 to 12 months little milestones that you guys want to be hitting, and then obviously achieving that larger goal moving forward. But what should investors be seeing in the near term or be expecting?
From the entire company, or from the Cleveland project? If I go the entire company,
the entire outlook moving forward, because obviously
for us,
the Cleveland side of things, by the sounds of it, isn't the main priority right now. Understandably, because you've got something great by the looks of it in Spain.
Yeah. For us, the focus at Spain is to submit our primary license applications at the end of the month, end of September, start of October. That really kicks off our official licensing procedure. Obviously, getting projects licensed is critical anywhere in the world. So getting those primary licenses back by the end of 2025, critical for us. Getting the DFS completed in the next 5 to 6 months is obviously also critical for us. Being able to come out to the market with the most mature techno-economic study that you can. And as I said, we're well mature with that. We just need to close it off with the final modifications that we did in the last few months. Basically getting that to the market. Then we basically have a period where we'll have a completed DFS. We'll have approvals incoming. We'll then move it through the stages of project financing. So we're already working with a number of debt lenders, off-takers, and the rest of it. That basically stops us having to do the technical work or the reporting from site, and that let us really focus on the project financing and getting ready for construction over in Spain. So when we get our primary licenses, very quickly can move it through to FID, or final investment decision, raise the equity, raise your debt, and go in and build the thing. Roughly a 18-month to 2-year construction time frame for us, depending how much early work we do pre-FID, which then takes us into operation somewhere in 2027.
Excellent. Sounds like there's a lot of exciting things in the pipeline. I guess another thing I'm curious, and I'm sure everyone else is as well listening, what is, in terms of the team on the floor over in Spain, how many do you have working behind the scenes? And not only their experience, Joe, but what is your experience to give shareholders a little bit of confidence that the right hands are on deck?
Yeah, as a junior miner, it's twofold, right? You've got to have the right people, but you got to have the right people and the right commercial models. So for us, we've always kept our team, our owners, our employees, we still keep very small. So in Spain, we've got about 6 to 8 employees. In Australia, we've got about 5, right? But you want junior miners to stay small. What we do is lean heavily on the experience of contractors and consultants.
Yep.
So in Spain, we have a very experienced team over there. The guys that we've got have spent their whole history working in Spain, and Portugal, I should say, and the Pyrite Belt is a very famous base minerals mining area. It's got very complex metallurgy in a lot of it. Now, we're not in the Pyrite Belt; we're a bit out of it, and our metallurgy is very simple. But because of that, these guys have built teams, and operated mines for a very long time, and in much more challenging environments than us. So we've got good experienced guys down there. We are in Andalucía, and that's very critical for us, because if you look at the Spanish states, or autonomous regions they call them, are actually more independent than our Australian states. All
Right.
their laws are basically operated by the states. So for us, being in Andalucía is critical. That is clearly the biggest mining region in Spain, and it's the region right on the southern coast, right? That's where 90% of Spain's mineral revenue comes from.
Right.
And that's where all the big mines are being approved. So there's big guys there. Sandfire Resources are in Andalucía. They bought into the Matsa mining complex about 2 years ago. So having a big Australian miner there is given the industry a lot of confidence that it's a mature mining region. You've got First Quantum out of Canada, one of the biggest copper miners in the world, own the Cobre Las Cruces. You got the original Rio Tinto copper mine, currently owned by a group called Atalaya Mining. They're worth about $1 billion on the London Metals Exchange. You got big multi-billion-dollar companies operating in Andalucía, as well as a handful of juniors like ourselves. But it gives a lot of people confidence you're in a mature mining region over there. They're highly regulated, but also very responsible. So whilst like all regions, it's always challenging getting your approvals and working through those processes. But
Yeah.
what they do guarantees very high standard mining when we come out of it. So in terms of the ESG goals, in terms of responsible, sustainable mining practices that you want to see around the world, Spain is really up there. And for us, that's fantastic for our investors,
Of
and
course.
certainly very attractive to financiers compared to other regions around the world.
Of course, keeps you on your toes for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%.
Absolutely.
Is
So
there
there's a map of where we are, just for reference. I should have been on that one.
so I guess for the Spain side of things, you've got the one project, obviously Oropesa. Are there any others you've got your eyes on, or is there potential to expand the project and move into other areas of Spain, or is it just simply get this one up and running, get what you think is there, and then really just take it month by month?
Yeah, and apologies, I haven't got these slides in here, but earlier this week we actually announced, the acquisition of a couple of tenure pieces of tenure around our Oropesa project. So 2 of them are actually directly adjacent, and they're very strategically important for us in terms of access and infrastructure to support our Oropesa project. But in addition to that, they're also quite geologically prospective themselves. The region we're in Oropesa is an old base metals region. There used to be a big zinc and copper smelter down the road from us, 10 kilometers down the road, operating in the early 1900s. So it is a very prospective mineral area. We've picked up 2 tenements directly adjacent to our Oropesa tenement. We picked up another one about 7 kilometers away that looks very prospective for both rare earths. Yeah, it's got some high dysprosium readings, as well as some porphyry copper from some historic holes we've reviewed. So, obviously that's all potential and yet to be explored and investigated by us in any great detail, but certainly shows a lot of potential in the area. It is not an area that's actively being explored by many people, and we see huge prospectivity. We've always said if this area was in West Australia or Queensland, New South Wales, there'd be 30 to 40 companies sitting on it, and we're probably operating in an area where there's probably 2 or 3 guys exploring right now. So,
why is that? Is
it's to do with the Spanish politics, right? So without getting too much into it, Spain was a very right-leaning, somewhat fascist regime for a large part of the 1900s. So they basically had a dictator in there that was running the country very hard. Wasn't open to foreign mining investment. And then when that regime fell in the late 70s or 80s, apologies to the people who know those details better than me, the country went very, very left, very socialist, basically as a knee-jerk reaction to having been in an oppressive regime. Because of that, again, mining wasn't super well supported. The big boys could get things done, but in terms of junior companies. So about 15 years ago, 20 years ago, that started changing. And right now we've got a very supportive centre-right government there that's pro-jobs, pro-employment. The unemployment in our local region is about 40%. It's economically very,
Wow.
So it's an economically depressed area, very rural, not the glossy, Spain that people see on the postcards down on the coast.
It's
This
no
is
no Mallorca, eh?
no, it's not at all. So this is the other end of Spain, and certainly the government's very supportive in re-stimulating these areas. It used to be an old coal mining region. Coal mines in the Spain have been turned off for about the last 15, 20 years. The EU paid Spain a lot of money to turn off their coal mines. So historically, there's a lot of mining experience in this area, but again, that got turned off for European Union political reasons. Now it's the government's really re-stimulating the economy. So we fully believe we won't be one of a handful in a couple of years. So we're doing our best to, whilst we're focused on our main project, to explore the region and put our foot on any prospective tenements close by.
And I imagine, obviously, being Spain, obviously being so political at times, I imagine you're trying to build a good relationship with the Spanish government and making ties that are going to benefit the business moving forward.
Yeah, so that's good. Thanks for prompting me. We're actually a state significant project in Andalucía. So effectively, the way it's their project accelerator unit. We're a member. There's only 7 mining projects in there, and basically, I'll repeat myself, but basically the companies I mentioned 5 minutes ago are the only other companies part of that. So 7 of us. We're clearly the smallest company in there, so we do have, being a member of that group is very advantageous. You get a lot of support from the government in dealing with the bureaucracy, dealing with the departments, getting your approvals. So we've been very well supported by them, and certainly it's good to being able to display that support to investors that we've got support domestically. Again, on the national level, there's no approvals we need from the national level. They don't have any oversight, but we certainly spend a bit of time in Madrid, catch up with the government when we can. They are very supportive of their major industries, and one of Spain's major industry is the automotive industry. They're spending a lot of money on building EV manufacturing facilities, and obviously, whenever you start talking EVs or batteries, you start talking about electrical circuits, you start talking about tin. So again, strategically for us, being a vertically integrated tin producer, or planning to be a vertically integrated tin producer within the south of Spain, could be very advantageous, and we're having as many conversations on that as we can.
How good's that? Well, Joe, is there any last points you want to make before we wrap things up? And anyone with any last minute questions, drop them in, because it's a good time to have that interaction with Joe where he can just answer you straight up. So, Joe, any other last points before we end the webinar?
I think the other thing I just want to raise, because we've obviously hopefully we've got some of our Elementos shareholders on the call. We're midway through a capital raise. We've done a 3 million private placement, which is very well supported by our chairman and major shareholder, Andy Gregg. He took about 1.5 of the 3 himself. Big believer in what we're doing. He's got a very interesting corporate history. For those not familiar, he worked for Bechtel for 35 years and ran their metals and mining division for 15. Bechtel is one of, if not the world's largest engineering construction companies, privately owned in the US, does a lot of work for the US government. And he's a big supporter of tin, big supporter of Elementos, and certainly our strategy moving forward. So having him take a big role should give our shareholders confidence on what the way forward looks for us. We do have an entitlement offer open right now to our current shareholders, which is a 1 for 6 offer of 9.5 cents per share, as well as an 18-cent option. So certainly encouraging any of the ELT shareholders that are on the call to if they haven't already, to accept their entitlement, and certainly assist the company in funding the next phase, which is very exciting and became even more exciting this morning.
How good is that? Well, Joe, again, from on my end and ShareWise end, we just want to thank you for your time. I'm sure there'll be plenty more webinars to come with you guys, and any new announcements you want to touch base, we're more than happy to have another webinar. But this is recorded, so anyone watching or anyone who wants to send it out there, it's going to be on our YouTube channel. I'm sure Joe's going to put it out there, maybe on LinkedIn or whatever social he's got there. If you've missed anything, be sure to just double check and go through it. But Joe, thank you again. And yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, Harry. And yeah, thank you, ShareWise. Appreciate it. It's a good chat.
Easy peasy. Well, have a good evening and stay safe.
Thanks, mate.